This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hi there, and welcome to episode 244 of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I am Cody Villafana.
It's a little later in the night, Cody. I can see it's a little darker there in your studio room.
Yeah.
We had to wait for the Cowboys to finish playing.
We won, baby.
Who do they play?
The Bengals.
Are they good?
The
or
Bengals
no?
were in the Super Bowl last year, so
Oh, that's right.
yeah.
And
And the Cowboys are on their backup quarterback, and so it was a good win.
Turned the season around.
You know, two games in.
By the way, I assume you were at the UTSA UT game yesterday, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What time did you get to Austin?
I got to Austin around 2:30.
Okay, because I was in San Antonio yesterday.
Yeah.
Helping my mom. My mom got a new house, so I left San Antonio, and it took me 2.5 hours to get to Austin. At like,
it was bad.
And I was like, "What is happening?" And the only thing I can figure is people going to the game.
Well, so I don't know if you saw this, but there were 102,000 people at the game. It was the third highest attendance at DKR ever.
Wow, I did not see that. No.
Yeah. So I mean, I think from San Antonio there had to be at least like 10,000 people, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
But like going up there, I think I left my place at like 12:30, and it took me about 2 hours to get up to Austin.
Yeah, because my mom actually lives on the northeast side of San Antonio now, so it's a pretty quick straight shot. Don't have to go across town or anything, and it took me like an hour and 20 minutes to get there. Yeah. Motherfucker, you guys! I was cruising back up there. It was like 3:30. I left. I didn't get home till 6. Yeah, it's like, God damn it.
It was a bad trip. It's probably the longest it's ever taken me to get from here to Austin yesterday.
I was for the life of me, I couldn't figure it out, and then I remembered, oh yeah, this people are traveling to this fucking football game. God damn it. Anyway, sports news aside, there is some movie news out that we can actually talk about, Cody. Yeah. One of the biggest announcements from Sony in the past couple days is that they're going to be making a new Karate Kid movie.
Yeah.
Set in the universe of the original film, which, of course, right now is the domain of Cobra Kai, the smash hit Netflix series, formerly YouTube Red / Premium original. What was do you have the details of this? I think there wasn't much of it I read.
Yeah, there's not a lot. In fact, I don't even know if it's confirmed that it's set in that universe. I think that so far it's just that their Karate Kid movie being made. The last one being made, obviously, being the Jaden Smith, which is not a bad movie. I actually don't mind that Jaden Smith, Jackie Chan
fine.
Karate Kid.
I mean, it's not karate, though, because it's Chinese.
Yeah, right. Isn't it technically Taekwondo or some...
No, it'd be Kung Fu. Taekwondo is Korean.
That's right. But I mean, I think it's good. And then this one, I mean, it's interesting because I actually don't think they've confirmed whether or not it's set in that universe, which I think Cobra Kai's on season 5, right?
Right. Season 5 just came out. So from what I understand, Sony said that it was something like returning to the what did they say? There was something very specific, returning to the original franchise or something like that.
Okay.
Jon Hurwitz, one of the creators of Cobra Kai, took to Twitter to say that it's neither going to involve them or is it's what did he say? He said it isn't from us or focused on the Cobra Kai cast. Which, by the way, if you want to go back and listen to a bonus episode of the CineSnob Podcast, bonus episode 15, where I talked to the main cast of Karate Kid and the creators, Jon Hurwitz among them.
Yeah.
Back when they were just released season 2 on YouTube Premium, but since the show went to Netflix, it became huge.
Yeah.
That Sony could perhaps be developing something that's unrelated to that seems foolish.
Yeah, I mean, especially how that franchise has been like completely revived in a way that like people have like really cared about it. I mean, like just the idea that it went from YouTube Red to being like this giant Netflix hit
Yeah.
shows the interest in it. Yeah, it would be very odd to ignore the like the propulsion of that franchise through the Cobra Kai series, but I don't know. Studios aren't really making much sense these days, so it could be really anything.
Well, I mean, Sony especially with what they're doing with the ancillary Spider-Man shit.
Which was all pushed back this week, too. We probably won't get to that in a news story, but a lot of that stuff was pushed.
Yeah, well, I think Craven was actually moved up.
Yeah,
the one thing
I
that was
think
moved up.
Madame Web was moved from October to February.
February, yeah. And Craven got pushed to January 2023. Who knows if that's a good sign or bad sign? That used to be a terrible sign, but
October to February is usually a bad sign for
yes,
Madame
for sure.
Web.
Unless you're looking to capture like a Valentine's Day audience for some reason, but
Maybe.
have you watched Cobra Kai? I can't remember.
I've never seen it. No.
It's really great. I mean, it's corny. But that's kind of the charm of it. Like it doesn't, it kind of takes the piss out of everything. It's not this serious continuation. I'm terrified of what they might do with a continuation of the Karate Kid. Like, would they dare ignore the Cobra Kai stuff? Like, would they dare reboot?
So, I mean, but they can't possibly use the same characters and also ignore Cobra Kai at this point, right? I mean,
who knows?
Right?
I mean, unless they did a prequel or something like
like pre Cobra Kai between
like,
Karate Kid and Cobra Kai.
No, like pre-original Karate Kid movie, like
Oh.
some sort of Mr. Miyagi origin story,
Oh.
which I mean, I guess is probably still on the table. But yeah, if you tried to throw Ralph Macchio in there now and ignore Cobra Kai, like what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to crack into season 5 yet. It's TV right now. I know it's always been like this, but like usually they drop Cobra Kai seasons in like December, and they decided to do this one in September, like a week after all the House of the Dragon stuff and Lord of the Rings, which I haven't even started.
Yeah.
And then we've got Andor starting next week. It's a tough time. Plus I feel obligated to, because of the Netflix model, I feel obligated to watch every single one of them in a big marathon. But speaking of strange revivals, another news story we have is after 17 years, Warner Brothers is going to produce a sequel to the Keanu Reeves movie Constantine, which is a superhero adjacent film. It's the character is I don't know what you would call him, like a paranormal. What is the character?
I mean, I don't know. This is a franchise that completely passed me by. I mean, I think it was in those years where, it was like pre-comic book movies being good, pre-Marvel being a thing, and I remember just like hearing not so great stuff about it. But I guess it has a cult following. If not, I don't know.
So he's like a paranormal detective, right?
Okay.
Is the thing. So it's not really a superhero thing, but So the movie was released, directed by Francis Lawrence, who's going to come back and direct
Hunger Games director.
I Am Legend, old music video director back in the day. The character has been most recently a big part of the so-called Arrowverse on TV. The character was played by an actor named Matt Ryan in an NBC show that was canceled, and then they brought the character over to all the CW stuff. And this actor Matt Ryan has been voicing, like he's been basically the guy playing this character for the last at least probably 15 years.
Yep.
So it's let's see, when did Constantine start? Oh, I guess maybe not that long ago. So the last 7-8 years at least has been him. I'm really curious. I mean, again, another studio making crazy decisions, Warner Brothers. I'm really curious why now they're deciding to bring back to create a sequel to this movie that I don't remember. I never saw. I don't know anybody that's talked about the Keanu Reeves Constantine.
No,
at all.
I think there's a lot of people who look back on it as like, oh yeah, we were big proponents of this movie back when it came out, but like in the years since, I haven't seen a lot of like love for Constantine that has like broken through, where this has been like this long, like there's certain things that catch on as being like big cult hits where people really want to see a continuation of it. This has not been one of them. I don't think the people who have wanted this have been super vocal. This is not like a, restore the Snyderverse crew. This is, I don't know who's asking for this, but I mean, good for them, I guess. I mean, I think anytime Keanu Reeves is getting work, I think it's a good thing. But yeah, it's strange that, I know that like Kevin Feige has met with Keanu Reeves and wanted to get him in the MCU, and it's interesting that this happens prior to him getting an MCU role, which I thought was like imminent, but I guess not at this point.
I mean, I assume maybe just he wanted to do it. I don't know. I mean,
maybe, yeah.
I mean, the character, like I said, has been a pretty steady presence on TV for the last decade almost, and maybe it's not the worst idea to try it again. I don't know. It just seems like a strange out of left. It'd be like if all of a sudden they were making a sequel to Ben Affleck's Daredevil. Like, oh,
yeah, right.
Really? Like, I guess, sure, why not? But anyway, so that and I believe was there something else from Warner Brothers? I can't remember.
I think that was the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm indifferent. Maybe it'll make me go back and actually watch Constantine and see.
Yeah,
what it was
I'm
about.
curious to see. Like, I mean, to some degree, there had to be someone behind the scenes who's like, we need another one of these. So I am curious to see what it is, aside from just like having Keanu Reeves attached to, a major property, and Keanu Reeves having a nice, little career bump right now. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's always the CW series. If that stuff, I don't know if that stuff's all done yet. I can't remember. That's all winding down because the CW is dying along with everything else that's Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we move on?
No, I think we can go on.
All right. Let's go ahead and get started on reviews.
Here are this week's reviews.
First up, we have Pearl.
Caring for your family during these times is admirable. But you only get one take at this life.
If only they would just die.
Pardon?
Nothing. I want to be special, dancing up on the screen like the pretty girls in the pictures.
I will not let you leave this farm again.
So this is a prequel to the film X, which was released mere months ago. Mm-hmm. This was sort of a secret thing that was revealed in the post-credits scene of X. I haven't seen X. Mm-hmm. I know we covered it on the show when you saw it. I can't remember what you thought of it. But this is from, is it Ty West? Is that how you say it?
Yep.
Ty West. Okay. Cody, tell us about Pearl and what you thought of it.
Yeah, so I saw X at South by Southwest. It was like a midnight screening, and I was not actually a huge fan of X. It didn't quite do it for me. So I was kind of going into this movie a little bit skeptical. So basically, X has like the main villain of X is like an old woman who lives on this farm. And this is and actually I should say too that in the movie X, Mia Goth plays like a young adult film star, and then she also plays the old lady who's the villain of X. And so this is Mia Goth going and doing like a prequel, which is like the prequel of the villain of X, which is like the old woman who owns the farm. So that now you're caught up, Jerrod. For
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, so the thing about X was it was sort of like this. There were a lot of references to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like 70s era exploitation horror movies. And this movie is sort of like, if you read the interviews and stuff with Ty West, this movie is supposed to be like a really dark, fucked up version of like Disney movies and The Wizard of Oz. It's sort of like the Technicolor kind of thing that is the reference point. And I don't know if you picked up on it, but a lot of times Mia Goth's character is like dressed like Dorothy. There's a scene with the Scarecrow where she's dressed kind of like Dorothy.
Yeah, she's got the Mrs. Gulch look.
Yeah, but she's also
bicycle.
got like blue overalls and like pigtails kind of thing.
No, I know, but I'm talking about the other costume choice. Like when she's riding the bike with the top hat and the dress, that's the Mrs. Gulch style. Yeah.
And I think it's actually really great. I think it actually captures that really well. I don't know if this is something you picked on, but the score in the movie is like really great.
It is really lush and
yeah, it sounds like a Disney, like very early on in the opening credits. It sounds very Disney. Sounds like very like upbeat and like really nice and pretty score, and really it's this movie about this character who is sort of like feeling stuck on this farm, like she can't leave, and all she wants to do is she wants to leave and she wants to be a star. So there's also this like allure to the Hollywood lifestyle that's part of it too. And for me, this movie is like a showcase for Mia Goth, who I think is like fantastic in this movie. She gets a lot of time to shine. I think, the scene everyone's talking about, there's this like 6-minute single take towards the end of the movie where you can like, it's like almost like her entire break as a person, like a psychological break. And she goes through this like range of emotions in that scene, and it's just like so transfixing, and it's such a great performance. And if you saw X, I don't think it's essential that you see X. You're coming from the perspective of having not seen it before, but it's really just kind of like background story. If you saw X, it takes place on that same farm, so X takes place on the farm where a lot of Pearl takes place on. There's still the connection with like the alligator in the water is a big part of X as well.
Okay, yeah, because I was it seemed like there was a little backstory there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it just takes place at the same farm, and then again, there's that whole the alligator factors in. But it's about this allure to Hollywood. There's a little bit of like old time Hollywood shown in like the sort of like nostalgia for like old movies and stuff like that. But I don't think that it's one of those horror movies that's trying to be super profound in its messaging. I think it's just trying to present it like a really disturbing character and just kind of showing the descent into madness of this character. And I think as far as that goes, it's really effective. I think Mia Goth again is like legit terrifying in this role. In multiple parts, and I found myself really entertained by it. I really liked watching kind of the descent of her character. It's starting off as like this very like seemingly innocuous and innocent, like she wants to be famous but maybe doesn't have like the talent for it, to this becoming like this delusional fantasy, to then it becoming like this like she's not going to survive and live if she doesn't make it famous, and she's going to take everyone down if she doesn't. And I really like that story. So I was thoroughly entertained. I think it's legit unsettling. There's some great imagery. I think the direction is really great. I really like the juxtaposition of like the lush, super colorful cinematography matched up with like this really dark and kind of sinister character. And I think, above all else, Mia Goth is fantastic in the role. So I actually like this a fair amount better than I liked X.
Yeah, not having seen X, I think maybe the few of the issues that I had, like you're talking about the alligator thing, like some of that seems to come from nowhere and not really have any reference to anything. So I think that's kind of like I feel like there was a pacing thing happening in the beginning that I didn't really understand. Like it kind of was rapid fire through stuff, and now that I understand that they're like callbacks to X, I get that. I agree with you. I think it's a really disturbing kind of portrait of this girl really unraveling. And the Wizard of Oz parallels are spot on. I mean, obviously intentionally, but it's one of those things doesn't really hit you over the head with that it's taking inspiration from that. You can put it together after the fact. That said, I think it looks gorgeous too. That's one of the things that I was really surprised by, because this is, I assume, a fairly low budget horror movie, and I think it was shot in New Zealand.
Yes.
But like the location work is, I mean, it's so great looking. For a low budget horror movie to have this period look like that, it's just it's so engrossing. And then there's some really great practical effects. I sat through the credits because I knew there was a credits. There's also like a really disturbing shot
the final
in the
shot
credits.
Of the movie.
That lasts for a long time. So I sat through the credits, and there, it's all done in the real 1930s style, filmmaking, with the way the credits look, and the opening credits and things like that. But I noticed that the effects were done by Weta, like the practical effects.
Yes.
So there's some really great there's a scene near the end of the movie that I'm like, holy shit, that looked awesome. Like just the practical effects of it. Go ahead. I didn't.
Well, no, I was going to say that I was reading this, that they used, so this was made during the pandemic, and I believe that they used this, like a team from Avatar, while they were in break. I got to double check that, but I was reading through the Wikipedia, and I think that they used the same team as the Avatar team when they were making it, but let me check on that.
And it also has, speaking of the pandemic, it also has pandemic parallels. It's the influenza.
The Spanish flu.
Yeah. So it's people are walking around in masks and.
Yeah. So West worked with the production crew of Avatar: The Way of Water, who were taking a break from production during that time. So that that explains a lot of the connections. I'm
curious though that if it's because there's a scene in particular that let's just say one of the kills that I assume was practical effects.
Yeah.
There's a montage after that was so good. I mean, it's grisly as shit, but it's so well done.
Yeah.
It's really kind of refreshing, especially after something like last week with Barbarian, which I feel like it was trying to say something. This is just sort of a kind of just look at a disturbed person falling apart.
Yeah.
Maniacally, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and it's at the point where I don't know how it was in your theater if there were a lot of people there, but people in my
there were four
Okay.
people, including me.
People in my theater were laughing at parts I don't think were meant to be funny, and I think it just shows like the disturbing discomfort of the character. And it's interesting that you talk about the stylized version of it, because even though I didn't love X, it really nails the 70s style. And then if you know where this is going, there's going to be a sequel to X coming up called Maxine that's going to take place in the 80s in LA. And so I'm just really curious to see what Ty West does, because it seems like he's nailing the aspect of like the references of these types of movies, like covering the 70s and then covering, I guess, like the 30s and 40s style cinema here. And it's really cool. It's really like a stylish, like, again, just well made, well directed movie.
Yeah, and then often those things tend to be more style over substance. Again, I didn't see X, but this at least had the stylistic touches that didn't overshadow the story. I mean, it really engrosses you, because I said engrosses twice. That was a strange word I picked, but it really brings you in because it's so well put together. Again, like the locations, like maybe that's the charm of living in New Zealand, that there's shit from the 1930s that's still just sitting around. I don't know. What's your grade for Pearl, Cody?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I think that this is a showcase for Mia Goth. You know, she's a co-writer on the movie. Her and Ty West, I guess, kind of like formulated the story and figured out where this story was going to go. And you know, I think it's an improvement on X, which I found a little one note. I think, I mean, that's difficult to say because I don't think this is a super complex story, but I think that you know, it is this like really in depth and engrossing. I'm gonna steal your word. Look at this, like, you know, this female character just completely unraveling, and done so in a way where, you know, you can see the seams fall apart, and then, you know, again in this 6-minute unbroken take, a monologue that Mia Goth has at the end, it's like the seams just completely rip apart at that point. And it's just such great acting. She's incredible. You know, you can see the range of emotion where she goes from being fine to like crying to like, you know, getting to this point where she's cold and emotionless. And I love the payoff of that scene where where sort of like you can exhale and then it's like, nope, you can't exhale. And I think it's just a really great execution. I give this a B. I think it's a really solid horror movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a B+. I mean, I think it was really well done. I don't know that it necessarily stands entirely on its own with the kind of tie-ins that you kind of have to know apparently what happened in X to appreciate, because like the alligator is, again, it's one of those things that just sort of it's there and like I don't understand why the alligator is there. But yeah, a B+ for me. And then yeah, if you stick around through the end credits, you'll see a teaser for Maxine, which is the third in this series, which I don't know when that's supposed to be released, but
yeah, so that one actually has not been filmed yet, and I assume you probably would want to watch X before that because it's her character from X moving on. So
yeah, I'm gonna watch X next. All right, let's go and move on to our next movie, Confess, Fletch.
My father's paintings were stolen. The Picasso was appraised at $20 million.
Well, that hardly seems worth stealing.
You're not a detective.
But I was an investigative reporter. It's an occupation that's been cheapened by the digital age, like president.
Earl Maurice Fletcher?
They caught me in the middle of a yawn. Can you imagine that?
Who killed this young woman?
I think the victim interrupted an art theft.
Your fingerprints are on the murder weapon, and someone matching your description was seen with the victim. Come back with me to police headquarters.
I get it. You want my help? Okay. Hey, guys, is there a way we can call in a coffee order? I'd kill for a macchiato. Not literally.
I looked into your criminal record.
And?
You're a bit of a shady character, Mr. Fletcher.
But I am adorable.
If you did kill that girl, do the right thing and give me an exclusive.
Let's talk about the suspects.
The Countess de Grazia married Papa for his money. Somehow she's involved.
Fletch, she's trying to seduce me.
Quite the collection of impressionists you have here.
Those are reproductions.
That's how I introduce my children. Why did you lie to me?
You're becoming paranoid. Maybe you should get a gun.
So let's just talk real quick about that trailer, because that's a terrible trailer.
Not a good trailer.
That's a terrible trailer. Having seen the movie, that trailer sucks.
Yeah. Which is funny because we always talk about like the art of trailer editing, and this is the case where it goes in the opposite direction, where it is in no way like an indication of the quality of this movie. And
it's again, like the tone is so different than the movie. And I get it, you're trying to sell it, but this movie has I don't think I've seen worse marketing for a movie. I mean, I think the most recent thing I can think of is the disrespect of Nightmare Alley opening against No Way Home.
Yeah.
Which was like the worst. Like that, come on. Like, why are you doing this to poor Guillermo del Toro? Like, anyway. This is probably, thinking back, this is probably the most mismarketed movie since, that I can think of, since Spontaneous. Which I think like just didn't have it had no charm. Like the charm of that movie was not conveyed at all. And I think the same with this one too. But anyway, this is of course a new Fletch movie. not related to the two starring Chevy Chase from the 80s, but similar in a way. But anyway, Cody, tell us about Confess Fletch, what you thought of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, starting with the marketing is an interesting way to do it because it is a strange, and it's Miramax too, which is a studio or distributor who like has not really been known for putting out a lot of stuff recently.
It's sort of a zombie version, like that's owned by Paramount. It's not your Harvey Weinstein Miramax. I mean, which for better or worse, I mean, obviously worse, him being awful, but better when they released good shit.
Yeah. And I think, it's interesting. And to be fair, I do think that even though the trailer is really bad for this movie, it's kind of difficult to convey the tone of the movie in a 2 to 3 minute thing because this movie is very low key. I think that its sense of humor is very subtle. I think that it doesn't go for I think there's one scene in the movie that goes for really broad laughs, which is a scene with Annie Mumolo, which I actually think is a really good scene. And I actually really like the way that it plays out, but it's not indicative of the rest of the story. And so, you and I have talked before about, I think both of us really like Jon Hamm, as an actor.
Oh, yeah.
And also I think both of us really find Jon Hamm very funny, but he hasn't really had the chance for it. You see bits of it in 30 Rock, and you've seen bits of it in Bridesmaids, where I think he's really funny. But he hasn't really had the chance to take this comedic lead before for a guy who even if you know him on a personal level is his friends are he's really close with Paul Rudd and Adam Scott, and his friends are comedians and stuff like that. And it's really great to see him finally take on this comedic lead role. And this has been a movie that has been through many hands. We talked about it last week where, Kevin Smith had his hands on it for a while, and it was supposed to be Jason Lee. Jason Sudeikis was attached to this for a long time, which I think is would have been interesting too. But it's a very dry humor, sort of mystery whodunit movie, but it has this added layer of which makes it great, which is that Fletch is also trying to solve his own mystery within the mystery, and he's a suspect, but also does not care at all, seemingly, that he is a suspect in this thing, and he's also trying to solve the case as well. And I think it leads to just a lot of really great stuff. I really like the interplay with him and Roy Wood Jr., who has kind of the second lead role or the second highest billing role here. And I think he's really great, and I really like that interplay there. And it's just a really well executed and tightly made mystery movie. And I think the humor lands more often than not. It's very subtle humor. You and I were talking about it. There's a really, really funny throwaway joke about a shop around the corner that where Jon Hamm has a very funny reply to it.
Well, he just sort of he's always responding to everything.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's the sort of very smart ass every single line that is thrown at him, he has kind of a rebuttal to. And I really like that in a movie. I like really smartly written characters who are just constantly throwing barbs back and forth. And it's a very dry, very sarcastic. So I think if you're into dry humor, almost quasi British humor in a way where it's very subtle, very small. A lot of the humor comes with wordplay or very dialogue driven. If you're into that kind of humor, I think there's a lot to really mine from this movie. I think that this sort of central mystery to it kind of loses a little bit of steam towards the end, which kind of shapes my overall opinion, because I think the third act is the weakest act of the movie. I really like the build up to it. I really like the middle chunk. And I like the interplay between all the characters here. I think Kyle MacLachlan is really interesting as an interplay here, and there's some fun John Slattery stuff in here as well.
John Slattery gets some great lines.
He does, but it's almost weird because I wish they would have leaned harder into the R rating, because it's kind of PG-13 until Slattery shows up, and then it kind of veers into R rating, which is kind of strange. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing this in being morphed into this fun little franchise where you get to see this really sarcastic, funny arrogant, but in a funny way, character kind of work his way through these cases. Again, the thing is that he's a journalist, not a detective, and I think that's also an interesting foil to everything. So I found myself enjoying, especially having seen the trailer before, enjoying this way more than I thought I would. I think that, again, the third act kind of like the sort of like bottom falls out a little bit, and I don't think it ends as strong as it starts, but I think it's a great performance from Jon Hamm, and I really think that he could be a very, very talented and strong comedic actor given the opportunity, and I think this is a great usage of his talents, and I think it's really tapping into that like very funny side of him that I think anyone who's seen him in TV knows that he's capable of.
Well, in a perfect world, this would have come out like while Mad Men was on.
Yeah.
And like really traded on that like heat that he had. It's been 7-8 years since Mad Men ended. I don't know what. So this is let me ask you, did you ever see the Chevy Chase Fletch movies?
I've seen the first one. I have not seen.
I've seen the first. I saw the first one, I don't know, 15 years ago again. I saw the second one when I was a kid. I remember my dad watching it. They're very different. I mean, there's some elements that are the same, kind of the fast talking. Like Chevy Chase is one of those guys that, like, it's the same sort of delivery where he reacts to everything. They had a lot more like goofy stuff in it, like him dressing up in costumes and things. Yeah. And there was a voiceover narration that explained everything. This, I think, is more along the lines of what the character is supposed to be.
It's apparently very closely modeled after the books.
Yes, which this movie makes me want to go. I wanted to grab those books off and on for the last 20 years, and then I just never did. I think they were out of print for a while. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is it's like the first 2/3 of the film, like the first 2 acts are really fun. They're really great. It's really well put together, and the dialogue is so good. I do think that by the time it gets to the end and the big mystery is revealed, it just sort of shrugs.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because it's kind of like the movie like starts in the middle, so to speak, of what's happening. And then it's all kind of explained. Like there's a long scene at the end with Roy Wood and Fletch where like stuff is just explained, and it really takes the steam out of the movie, which I think is again, I'm echoing everything you said. It's so Jon Hamm is so good in this role. Yeah. And so fun and so easy to watch, and it plays on his kind of inherent handsomeness and schlubbiness at the same time. Mm-hmm. There's this like the scene with him and Marcia Gay Harden in the hotel, and he just and then just leaves. Like it's just a great, like just great comedic timing. The joke about the shop around the corner is so good. Again, it's just a throwaway joke. I don't know that there's a weak cast member in the movie at all either. I think everybody's really good. It sucks though. It's hard to talk about this movie without talking about just the abandonment that the studio has foisted upon it. Like, and I've read a lot of stuff about this on Twitter, film Twitter over the weekend. Like the idea that 10 years ago, this would have been like a $90 million movie, like at the box office. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it would have been a strong theatrical release. Again, if it had been in the days of Mad Men, it would have been a much better, stood a much better chance of garnering attention. I just can't believe the idea that they produced this movie, shot apparently on location in Italy, at least some spots, or a very convincing facsimile of Italy. Mm-hmm. And it's just...
a lot was shot in Boston, for sure.
Yeah, like it's not shot in Atlanta looking like Boston. Mm-hmm. It's set in Boston, it's shot in Boston. There's scenes that, if it's not Italy, it fucking is a great reproduction of Italy. And it's just thrown away. I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
It sucks, too, because, I mean, like, this is the type of movie that they're talking about is going to die, mm-hmm. which is like this mid-budget, adult skewing, but like really enjoyable, like $30 million movie that mm-hmm. is in danger of just dying off completely, where it's just either going to be these tiny little micro-budget indies and these giant blockbuster movies. And it sucks that you have a movie like this that, again, was shot during the pandemic on budget. And the only reason they got to make it, I don't know if you've read interviews with Greg Mottola, but the only reason they got to make it is because they agreed to make it for far less than they thought that they wanted to. And the idea is that, Jon Hamm's a big fan of this series, and so is Mottola, and they want to make several of these.
Yeah.
And I worry that they can't because it won't make money, but I also would love to see a series of these. I would love to see a series of these every few years, because I think that Jon Hamm completely owns the role. I think it's such a great performance from a guy who has all the charisma in the world, and can be funny, but also has the dramatic chops of an Emmy-winning, dramatic actor. And I hope that it has a shelf life. I have my doubts about that, but I would totally watch a series of these movies. It's super breezy, super enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of Knives Out, like this mid-budget, really, really well put together adult skewing movie that Knives Out was a hit and spawned this Netflix deal. This one, I'm afraid this is it. And it really deserves more, because it's a lot of fun. I mean, if it does kind of not fall apart, but really kind of get deflated mystery wise. But I think, like you said, this type of movie is going to die. This is a movie that would have had a decent theatrical release, years ago. And now it didn't even get a Netflix release. It got a short theatrical run, a premium VOD release.
And then it'll be on Showtime in a few weeks.
Yeah. Which isn't even a giant streaming platform. It's threatening to be combined with Paramount Plus. It just makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know this movie was out this weekend, you could be entirely forgiven, because I don't think anybody knew this movie was out that wasn't entirely tuned into anything. I don't know how you would have stumbled across this movie,
or how you would see that it tied into the Chevy Chase. It's part of the Fletch, it's a continuation of that. I mean, it doesn't help that the title's not great, but also it's the title of the book that they're adapting, so I get it. But I don't know how, unless you were paying attention to what was opening at your theater or saw a trailer in passing. And even then, if you saw the trailer, I don't think you'd be super excited to see it, which is, the other thing too, that really shows this sort of throwing away that Miramax is doing, is the level of quality of that trailer, which is just it's a shitty trailer. It's a really bad trailer. It does not in any way convey the quality or the tone or anything else of the movie. It's really disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that the movie turned out to be really enjoyable. If at least it didn't earn its dumping.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's your grade for Confess, Fletch?
So I'm gonna give it a B-, and that's I still really enjoyed it. I do think it was headed towards that B range, and then I really do think that the final act kind of just peters out a little bit in a way that I really wish kind of would have finished strongly, but. Like I said, it's a movie that's good enough to where I want to see Jon Hamm do this again. I want to see this character again. I'd love to see the Roy Wood and the Grizz character also come back, because I think both of those characters are really good. I would love to see this again, but as it stands now, a B-.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a B. I really enjoyed it. Again, I think it does kind of not really wrap up its mystery in a way that's satisfying. It feels like it needed a lot of explanation. I still don't I still haven't quite put it together. I don't know that it quite fits in my head. I mean, I'm sure it's decent enough, but right now I'm I don't remember exactly what happened, but I mean, it is available now on premium on demand. I think it's $20 on Amazon. And then it'll be on Showtime.
I mean, if you can find it in your local theater, go on a discount Tuesday and pay $5 for it and enjoy it. I mean, again, if you're into that mystery stuff, if you liked Knives Out, or if you're into super subtle, kind of low key, again, like I said, kind of quasi British comedy, I think that you're going to find it to be really breezy and enjoyable.
And if you're a fan of the Chevy Chase movies, I don't think it's far off. I mean, those.
It's
I mean,
broad, but
it's.
Yeah.
I mean, those movies came out an eternity ago.
Yeah.
So they're they're not exactly peers, and it's not a direct sequel. Like, this isn't supposed to be the same Fletch character, but
right. It's sort of like a reboot. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's it's got that same vibe of like a comedy that's not really a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you would call it, but like the original Fletch movies were more like Beverly Hills Cop. Like, it's an action comedy. This is a little more of a comedy mystery along the lines of Knives Out, like we mentioned. So
yeah.
Let's move on to our last movie. I don't have a clip for it, but it's See How They Run. Cody, you saw this. I didn't. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I wanted to talk about this because I did watch a screener of it, and it's like a great, if you ever want to do a double feature, it would be great to double feature this with Fletch, Confessed Fletch, because See How They Run is kind of like a whodunit movie, but it's more in that like Agatha Christie style stuff. So much so that like the central plot of the movie is that there's an so it takes place in like I guess it would be like the 30s or 40s, and in like at this West End British production of an Agatha Christie performance, there's an actual murder that happens on set of that play. And so these detectives played by Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan end up kind of like investigating and trying to figure like which parts of the people. So like Adrian Brody plays a person who's adapting it into a movie, and his character gets murdered. Not a spoiler; it happens in the first like 5 minutes. And you basically try to figure out who murdered him. And it's like, again, similar to that, it's kind of like, again, Knives Outy, but I think more of like I haven't seen this movie, but I assume it's more a little bit like Clue in a way where, it's a bunch of people who are all in the same location and everyone's a suspect kind of thing.
Well, Clue's a bit of a farce, but yeah.
Yeah, and this is sort of like that too, where it is a comedy, it is kind of breezy. You do have these larger than life characters. There's a character played by like David Oyelowo, who's like a screenwriter who's adapting it, who's a prime suspect, who's like this very elevated like Hollywood screenwriter character, and really this movie just made me really think that Saoirse Ronan is a great actress. I really like her, and I think that she gets the most to do in this movie, and it is one of those things where again, similar to Confess Fletch, the comedy in it is really subtle, but also you get a lot of great interplay between, Sam Rockwell's detective character, who's sort of like a drunk and very low key, with Saoirse Ronan, who plays like a really like kind of like a rookie cop kind of thing, where she's very enthusiastic about things but a little bit unseasoned, and then like Agatha Christie also becomes a prime part of the movie, so she's like fictionalized and is part of the investigation too. So if you're into that sort of like proper whodunit, like old school style stuff, this is a really great version of it. And I had a lot of fun with it. And I'm also like a big fan of Sam Rockwell as an actor as well. I think that he very rarely delivers a performance that's less than stellar, and this is no different. So, again, it's a great like parallel to Fletch. It's one of those things where, if you're into whodunits, if you want something like really broad, I would go with, See How They Run. If you want something a little bit more subtle, go with Confess Fletch. Or if you're into this sort of thing, a double feature would be awesome. It's a great pairing.
Cool. What's your grade for See How They Run, Cody?
A B- as well. So it's, neck and neck with Confess Fletch. I think it just depends on what kind of mood you're in terms of like if you want it, but what kind of movie you want. But really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun with it.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Next week, I have no idea what's coming out next week.
Yeah, so I will be here reporting back on the first weekend of Fantastic Fest, which starts,
oh shit, that's already happening.
Yeah, it opens up next Friday, so I'll be in Austin Friday, Saturday, Sunday, taking in all of the movies there, and we'll have a show for that. And theatrically, we have Don't Worry, Darling, the maligned, I guess, Olivia Wilde movie that is the subject of great controversy, which I'm sure that the movie is like a nothing burger, and there's just a bunch of controversy surrounding it.
I know the movie wasn't getting good reviews. And then I think the Queen dying threw everything off. The gossip train.
Yeah. So we have Don't Worry, Darling. Also, theatrically, Blonde opens. I have a screener. I'm not sure if you have a screener.
I do, yeah.
So it opens theatrically before it opens in on demand on Netflix. So we may be able to cover that as well.
Yeah. yeah, and then yeah, sorry. I was just looking at a schedule, and I can't believe the Munsters is already coming out on Tuesday the 27th. Speaking of a terrible trailer.
Oh boy.
Boy. Are you a fan of Rob Zombie movies? I don't think I've liked any of them.
The only Rob Zombie movie I've ever seen is his first Halloween movie. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen like, House of a Thousand Corpses or Devil's Rejects or any of that shit.
I haven't seen any of that like exploitation horror, but I did see the first Halloween movie. I watched it like right after I watched the original Halloween, and it's just essentially a remake.
Yeah.
But for some reason, is it Scout Taylor Compton who plays Laurie in that? Like,
yeah.
So it's like she's a modern, like whatever the movie came out, 2007 or something. So she is a teenager. Meaning she would have been born like 1990, roughly, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, because every movie apparently needed this back then, there's a flashback to Michael Myers' like formation, origin story, I guess you would call it. And she's canonically in that series, he's her brother, but he, for whatever reason, is like from born in the 70s. I
don't remember that.
It's weird because of course that's how you sneak, because that's his like favorite aesthetic, is that like grungy 70s horror. I think of course Sherry Moon Zombie plays his mother, and
boy, that Munsters movie, man, I don't know.
It looks, I mean, I watched the Munsters as a kid, and I remember seeing some other there. Did you see the Mockingbird Lane pilot movie that was released?
I've seen like photos and clips, but I never saw the actual.
It was a pilot that didn't go anywhere, that got canceled, but they ended up airing the movie, airing it as a TV movie back when they still used to do that. That was maybe like 10, 15 years ago now. Eddie Izzard was like Grandpa Munster. I think Jerry O'Connell was Herman. It was actually really well done. It was a little more of a subtle reboot than this one.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now. It was 2012.
Wow.
Jerry O'Connell was Herman. Portia de Rossi was Lily.
Yes.
Eddie Izzard was Grandpa.
I don't remember who else was in it, but
no one of like great fame.
I remember enjoying it quite a bit, but I'm a big Eddie Izzard fan, so anyway, yeah, that we'll do that next week. We'll pair that with Bros, maybe.
Oh yeah, I have a screening of that. I'll be.
I actually do too.
I'll be out of town, but we may be able to do
son of a bitch,
like a midweek kind of thing. I do want to cover Fantastic. So I don't know if I didn't tell you this, but like The People's Joker is an online exclusive for Fantastic Fest for the at-home version. So I may actually get to see that based on all the sort of stuff that's going on with it this week.
I got a lot of thoughts on The People's Joker.
It'll be interesting to see what it's actually like, and then I think maybe that'll formulate some of the opinions on it.
Well, I mean, you can go on YouTube and see any number of thousands of Batman fan films that The People's Joker would be right alongside, but you don't get the publicity.
For the people who have seen it, the reviews are really solid. So
I don't doubt that it's a quality product, but good Lord, they knew what they were doing with the publicity.
Yeah.
So
yeah, in terms of stepping in it, and
yeah. Anyway, that's good. I already wrapped up. So anything else before we? Oh, you can reach us at find us on what is it? Twitter at CineSnob. Is it CineSnob?
I mean, sure.
Sure, why not?
That account's kind of been dead. You should probably find us individually on Twitter.
Yeah, for Jared Kingery, and then CineSnob Cody on Twitter. I don't even have the login for the CineSnob one. I don't think so.
I think I do somewhere.
Emails at podcast@cinesnob.net. Facebook CineSnob Critic.
If you're at Fantastic Fest in Austin next week, come say hi. I'll be there.
It's is this the first in-person one since
it was in person
2019?
last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it I feel like there was something different about it last year.
It was just a little bit condensed. Like the movies were starting in the late afternoon, and this year it's starting at 11 a.m. again, which means P&I screenings at 8 a.m., which If you know the sort of type of film that's at Fantastic Fest, it's a bit of a mind fuck to watch.
I saw The Autopsy of Jane Doe was I think that was the last time I went. I saw The Autopsy of Jane Doe like 8 a.m.
I saw The Endless, which is a Benson and Moorhead mind fuck time travel movie at like 8 a.m. and I was like, I'm not awake for this.
Autopsy of Jane Doe was pretty straightforward. And then like this probably won't fly anymore. Probably for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then there's two things about it. Like they had, did you see that movie?
I did not, but I heard about it.
They had like a body, like the naked body of the, like in the lobby for The Autopsy of Jane Doe. And I'm walking out, I'm looking at it, and some dude is like, hey, can you take my picture? And it was Emil Hirsch and his girlfriend, I guess. Uh-huh. So I took his picture in front of him, like, this is weird. And then, like, those are two things that probably won't fly at Fantastic. I don't know, Fantastic Fest. I'm not going to comment on what I think of it socially, but maybe those two things wouldn't fly anymore.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And the other thing too, I wanted to mention, like we were talking about this earlier, like go to the movies right now. There's a lot of really good movies out there. Like I think, again, like we both said, Pearl is really good. You know, Confess Fletch is great. See How They Run is great. I saw The Woman King, which we're not covering this week, but The Woman King is really good as well.
That one had the trailer wasn't great for that one either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I didn't. I know it was the top movie this weekend, but I just something about the trailer just didn't grab me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I only have a scant amount of time during the week to see movies, and they didn't screen it for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to pick Pearl and Confess Fletch.
And I went to that today. It's good. This is a great week to go to the movies, whatever you're interested in. If you want an action movie, go see Woman King. If you're into horror, please go see Pearl. It's really solid. And if you want a nice mystery movie, you can't go wrong with either of these movies here.
Yeah. All right. Anything else before we go?
No. I think that's
all right.
it.
On that note, I am Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit CineSnob.net. See you next week.